book review. Book review. Book review. One of my goals for this year is to read at least one book per month. Today is January 31st, and by the nick of time, I finished my first book. This month we read Mitch Albom's The 5 People You Meet in Heaven. I hope this is one of the guys I meet in heaven. Ain't that right, Lucky? Yeah. This is my second book that I've read by Mitch Albom. The first one was Tuesdays with Morrie. I love that book. It changed my whole perspective on a lot of things, and I read that last year. It has carried me through a lot of my life experiences at this point. This book brings on a new tale. It is a perspective of an older gentleman named Eddie, and unfortunately he does pass away, but the story goes through and says you are going to meet 5 people when you reach heaven. The purpose of meeting these 5 people is to acknowledge and really appreciate everything that you've done during your whole life. That everything throughout the span of the universe has led you to that moment, to the very end, and the whole journey throughout was all in an effort to get you where you needed to be. I personally love this message because I'm a big believer in everything will happen the way it's supposed to happen because it was meant to happen that way. I know that this is a weird point of view for some people, but I am a true believer, and I think that is a great thing that this story really entails. That everything is connected. A story is a story because there's a beginning, middle, and ending, and your life is part of that. This book took me 1 month exactly to read. Actually, maybe a little more, because I got this in December of last year, but I didn't really pick it up until this month. And I will say that I enjoyed it thoroughly. Not as much as Tuesdays with Morrie, but it has a different perspective and still gives you a great synopsis of what you should look at life like. Alright, this next part, I don't really know what I'm doing on here. We're here to talk about the book. One thing I would love to point out is I feel like I should make this more fun. I think book reviews should be fun to show you that reading can be fun. And this is coming from someone who thought reading was very boring up until really these past few months. It took Tuesdays with Morrie for me to read my first book since 5th grade. So that says a lot. Alright, change of scenery. Now, this book goes through the story of Morrie. Morrie is he's a maintenance man. He really is a true blue-collar worker. Excuse me, this whole time I've been saying Morrie because I keep remembering the first book. This book is about a guy named Eddie. Eddie is a maintenance man. He is a maintenance man at this carnival place right on a pier, kind of like Santa Monica type of thing, where they have like the rides and stuff. Yeah, this thing is called the Ruby Pier. By what I've read, it sounds beautiful. And it's right by the sea, and he's worked there ever since he came back from the army. He was stationed now in the Philippines, and unfortunately he was discharged because he took a bullet to the knee. You know what they always say, the knee. Eddie is a little disgruntled with the fact that life went the way it did. He has the same job that his dad did. He, unfortunately, not a cripple, but definitely struggles to walk. He feels like life kind of just flew by, and he's always upset. He can't appreciate life because in his eyes, it didn't go the way he wanted. Now, I think this is what started the book off a little weird for me because it was hard for me to be in the same mindset as him. I'm very appreciative of life, but it seems like the protagonist in this case, he's done with it. He's just over. He's 82 at this point, and all he can think about is like, I can't wait till the day that I don't have to be at this pier anymore. He's lived there his whole life. He's stayed at the same place. He's lived in the same childhood home. And I think he has been so tunnel visioned that he becomes unappreciative of everything. He's a war hero. He survived. And obviously I can't relate to this, and I have no idea what it feels like, but he's seen some crazy stuff in the war.
and when he comes back to the States, he's just mentally destroyed. You could tell that this guy just needs a hug. And quite frankly, I think this happens to a lot of us. I think that's what's great about reading, that you can compare what's going on to in this case a fictional person and make it your own. All right, I'm gonna get into the spoiler part here. So if you plan on reading this might be the time to tune out. So thanks for watching, but you should probably stay, because I don't think I'm gonna ruin it for you. To be completely honest, I have the comprehension of a 5th grader, so there are probably things that like flew right past me. But I still think anyone should read this book. Anyone should read this book and Tuesdays with Morrie. I wholeheartedly recommend it. The story begins. Eddie's doing some maintenance around the park, and he goes on a ride, make sure it's good, the usual. It actually happens to be his birthday. I believe it happens to be his birthday. It actually, yeah, it is. It is his birthday. You know what's crazy? Statistically, you're more likely to die on your birthday. I know that's a pretty sad note to have, but apparently it's true. Now Eddie, he's pretty tired. You could tell he's just soaking in the sun. I can close my eyes and imagine he's sitting by the bench at a pier, and he's like, wow, all these kids, all these families, like, they're all having fun, and they don't even know today's my birthday. Unfortunately, one of the rides actually starts to crash down. During this whole process, Eddie, being the connoisseur of rides, runs over, tells his helper, like, you got to stop the ride, we got to save them. In that moment, the cart from this roller coaster is going to crash down. It's going to fall down. It's going to hurt a lot of people. And he sees across the way this tiny little girl. This little girl who's just shocked. Doesn't know what to do. She can't move. In his last moments, Eddie runs as fast as he can with his crippled leg and all. And he just jumps. His goal is to save the girl. Unfortunately, Eddie wakes up in what can only be described as heaven. Now, Eddie is maintaining his physical form. He is the age of which when he died. He has the feeling, the appearance of it, but he feels like a child at this point. His legs feel limber. He feels able to move, stretch. He says that he is able to feel like a kid again. And so he's discovering heaven. And the point of the story is that in heaven you will be met with 5 people. These 5 people may be strangers, they may be someone you knew very well, but these 5 people are meant on your journey through heaven to essentially show you everything in your life was for a reason. I think this is beautiful, because regardless of big or small their role in your life, you had some impact on them. The first person he meets is actually someone from the pier. He saw this man as a child, and that is why he feels like a child in this moment, because he's remembering when he last saw this man. Eddie finds this first man, and they discuss that unfortunately one day Eddie actually runs in front of a car, and this car swerves and crashes in. Unfortunately, the driver passes away. And it's this carnival man. And Eddie is just dumbfounded. He's like, I killed you. I had no intention of killing you. I didn't even know you. I was a kid. And instead of being upset, the man is like, don't worry. Like, you were just a kid. You had no idea. And I could never blame you. This first carnival man has the job to essentially explain to him, you're in heaven. You're going to be met with 5 people in this journey. And all these 5 people, one way or another, you impacted their life. Or their lives impacted you. The second person he meets is actually his captain from the war. Now, the information that the captain tells him is that basically the captain sees him going through a manic episode on the last moments at war, and Eddie's going to run into a fire because he thinks someone's there. And at seeing this, the captain's like, damn, nothing's going to stop him. I have to be the one to put an end to this so we can go home. And so the captain shoots Eddie. Captain shoots Eddie in the leg. This ends up being the reason why Eddie becomes a cripple. So the first thing is that Eddie's pissed off, naturally. Eddie's like, you fucking did this to me. Sorry, Eddie's like, you did this to me. And he's like, yeah, I did. But if I hadn't done that, you would have run into that fire and you would have died, no matter what. This whole story wouldn't exist. I did what I needed to do to save you. So then they're talking a little more, and Eddie, I guess he has to accept. I don't really think there's violence in heaven, so he was angry, naturally, but what is he going to do about it? He's already dead. And so Eddie and this man are talking, Eddie and the captain, and he's like, dude, like, how'd you die? He's like, dude, let me tell you this crazy story. So after Eddie gets shot by the captain's like, shit, I gotta help these guys get out of here. The captain and the boys, they pick up Eddie. They're hustling, they're trying to get out. In that rush, the captain stands on a landmine. And unfortunately, you know how landmines go. This guy went boom. The way the book describes it is that he was vanished, obliterated, blew up into pieces. And the next time Eddie sees him is in heaven. God damn, these fucking planes. The third person that this guy meets is actually the lady who the pier was created for, which is beautiful. It's a whole full circle moment. And here he meets a bunch of information about the history, about how she's so grateful that he was there the whole time, and truly helped out. The fourth person he meets in heaven is actually his widowed wife, who died at the age of 47, and she dies of cancer. And they spend what would only feel like years just catching up. He was telling her everything that she's missed, telling her how much he misses her, and I think this is so beautiful. He's pissed off. He's genuinely so hurt that he's like, God took you away from me too young. We had so many years ahead of us. And she's like, yeah, that's true. The woman puts it in perspective, that it's like, just because I'm not there doesn't mean our love was gone. In fact, it may have even been stronger because he missed her so much. And I thought that was so beautiful, that you could love someone for the rest of your life, and it's just like that feeling will always be there. The fifth person he meets in heaven is a little girl. This little girl is just, he describes her as charred. She had been burned terribly. It is only through talking with her that he finds out this is one of the people that he may have killed in the Philippines during the war. And she is so badly burned, and he feels terrible. He's like, I hurt you. He feels terrible. He's like, the last person I meet is the one I hurt the most, an innocent child. And the child speaks like an adult in this moment and says, yes, you hurt me, but you made up for it. By working at that carnival, that pier, whatever you want to call it, you cared for children. You made sure those rides were safe for 40, 50, 60 years. You were there. You were present. You made up for what you did. You made people happy. And that's what Eddie doesn't realize. Like, even in his mundane life, he makes other people happy. He truly is a stand-up person. And though now he's kind of figuring out all the pieces, he's like, I didn't throw away my life. I didn't at all. I served a purpose. I maintained people safe. I gave people happiness, children, families, everyone. And even through it all, Eddie still feels terrible. The last thing he asks this little girl is, did I save the child that the cart was going to fall on? And he asks, I felt her in my hands. I pulled her out of the way. And the little girl says, no, you didn't pull her. And so Eddie crashes down. He's like, I sacrificed myself and I didn't even save the girl. And the little girl says, you didn't pull her. You pushed her. You pushed her out of the way just in the nick of time. And you saved her life. In that moment, he's like, no, 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 no. There's no way. I felt the pull. I felt the pull in my hands. I couldn't have pushed her. It's impossible. And the little girl says, no. Those hands were me. I pulled you into heaven. I made sure you got here safely. And it's a full circle moment. It's only after the fifth person that Eddie truly makes peace. He's like, wow, like, if it wasn't for every single one of those persons in my life, in that exact moment, I wouldn't have completed the story. And I think that's beautiful. I think that really, this book truly iterates how important the sequence of life is. Every little thing is meant to be there for a reason. At the end of the story, we find out that Eddie has made his peace. And like all the other people, you get to choose where you want to be. Eddie picks this beautiful place, and you're kind of left thinking, like, who's he going to be, the fifth person, or first or second or third or fourth? And he just he's gonna wait it out. But you're led to believe that he's gonna be there waiting for the little girl that he saved. And I think that's beautiful. I think that's beautiful. I think what Eddie wants to do is see what comes of that girl. He wants to know that what he sacrificed his life for was truly an act of pure good. And he wants to see what becomes of that girl. And he'll wait in heaven until that day comes. This book was beautiful. This book really changed my perspective on a lot of things. And I think the overall message is be grateful for your life. I think it's be grateful for the moments, even the small mundane stuff. There is a purpose to it. Appreciate everything that comes to you, the sad, the happy, the low, the highs. Everything is meant to be because that's how it was supposed to be. Overall, I give this book a 7.5 out of 10. If we're doing just numerical system, 7 out of 10. The only reason I don't rate it like an 8 or a 9 is because this is personal preference, and I think everyone should still appreciate this book. But it was a little hard to get into at the beginning, just for my own character. I didn't associate well with the character at the beginning. After the first quarter of the book, I'm like, oh, I'm deep in. But I think it's beautiful. I think it's a beautiful book. I got it at the Broward County Library. I actually have to turn this in within the next week, so to avoid any late fees. But it's a beautiful book. I highly recommend you to try it. And yeah, for the month of February, starts tomorrow. I do need to pick a new book. I've been watching other YouTube channels. They've been doing book clubs or book reviews, and I think it's great. I think motivating people to read is beautiful. So tune in. I know this is the last day of the month. I'll be more proactive to get the book read at a more speedily speed so that I can post a video in that month. But yeah, I highly recommend The 5 People You Meet in Heaven. Mitch Albom, great author. Read Tuesdays with Morrie. That book will change your life. I will wholeheartedly recommend that book. That is a 10 out of 10. But yeah, beautiful book. Thanks for joining Book Review. This is Ronnie. I'll see you next month. Mwah. Bye.